Man, I'll tell you what, every time I walk into my garage and see my 1990s Foxbody Mustang sitting here, man, it sure takes me back. Back to a time when cars were cool, when IROCs and Grand Nationals and Foxbody Mustangs were the thing. But just like in time, things go bad. Because at this point, they just haven't weathered the test of time. And in today's video, we're gonna be upgrading. We're not throwing a bunch of parts or money at it, so it's gonna be pretty budget and it's gonna be pretty fun. But we're gonna do something a little bit different in this video. Instead of going out and buying a bunch of parts and stuff that we really can't afford right now, we're gonna throw some old school swap meet parts that we've had in the box, and we're actually gonna install them on the car, see if they actually work. You never know what you're getting when you're buying something used, and we don't know if this actually works. That way we can take it out in the spring and the summer and enjoy it this year, and maybe my dad will get out there and race it one day. We'll see. Let's get into it. Okay, so last week we left you guys, we had a whole bunch of old plugs from when we were like with the old supercharger and the old setups. And right here on the table is pretty much what we got installed on, or going to install on Dad's car. And as I mentioned before in the other videos, GT40 top end from a junkyard with the Explorer, stock bottom end rebuild that we did here on the channel, budget home built turbo kit that we built here on the channel. And one of the things that we're suffering from right now, the ignition is cutting out. One of the worst things that we can do when we're trying to build up on one of our cars is throw a bunch of money and throw a bunch of parts out of it. So we're going to be installing an old swap meet part that I had here in a box. And I don't even really know how I got this. I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, it works good. To be honest with me, I don't really know if it did. It's an old MSD 6A. We run the 6AL in the white car when we had TFI going on, and it always seemed to work pretty good. We had a supercharger on this, we had nitrous on this, and we had turbocharger now. Obviously, the turbo makes a little bit more power. The nitrous was crazy torque. We're at the point where we're blowing ignition out. We're running out of fuel pump. We're gonna try the ignition first. We're gonna see by the end of the video if this thing actually fires up. We're gonna be changing out the plugs. You know, when we ran this car speed density with the turbo build and made, the horsepower we did with it, it ran lean and ran rich, and these plugs definitely need to be replaced. Pretty much all my budget builds with the GT40 heads and the stock heads, we run TR6 4177 NGKs. And these are the same plugs that we have over there. Sometimes they just need to be replaced, but these things are getting like $5 a piece now. And they used to be like $2.50, and it's getting kind of expensive. But we'll fire the car up when we get the plugs back in, make sure it fires up pretty good. We're not gonna mount the box just yet. I just wanna see if this old swap meet parts work, because once we get it mounted and get it permanently in the car, we're gonna head back over to the dyno and see how much power it makes. So we also ended up, this is an Amazon find, spark plug boots. They're like protectors. And we actually have a couple of them here on. We're just gonna replace some of the ones that needed to be replaced that seems to be not working. I think it's like 11 bucks. Guys, go get these on Amazon. They're like 11 bucks. Even if you're running naturally aspirated, these little boot protector things for your spark plugs are key, especially when you start upgrading your exhaust, whether it's turbo, whether it's regular exhaust, stuff like this. You could end up burning one of your spark plugs and your car starts to miss, and then you don't know. You'll start throwing money at it, start going through the Facebook forums trying to figure it out, and this whole time you just burned a little bit of a plug. We're gonna gap our plugs at 22. Since we plan on going up to about, 14 pounds of boost, 15 pounds of boost with Dad's car, just to see kind of what it makes, we're gonna have to, make sure that we don't blow any more spark out. And that's why we're gonna stick those old swap meet parts on to see if the ignition actually works in the car and makes it run pretty good. Plugs all gapped to 22. Start getting them installed. Now remember, we got GT40P headers here, so it's gonna be a little bit harder to get the plugs in on a couple of them, but we'll get them done. It's not a problem. So I showed this in the last video. We took a spark plug socket and we cut it down where I can actually get the wrench on it and install the spark plugs. So that's a little tip of the trade for GT40P stuff. Okay, got them all installed on both sides of the car. We're gonna check out the spark plug wires real quick and see if they actually need any of these boots that we got from Amazon. Got my big electrical little box from the trailer, and we're gonna just set it up, and then we're gonna install it another day, like probably in the fender here like we did with my white car, underneath all this stuff. I do have a shut-off switch underneath here that I probably will mount it right next to it. Hopefully it works. Okay, we got everything hooked up here, got the pipes back on, got all the plugs in and the wires routed correctly. We're gonna go give it a quick fire, make sure that the car actually runs. Oh yeah. So it looks like it run pretty good. And there's something to be said about these old MSD boxes. They're just not made the way they used to. So some of them old swap meet parts that you find out there, or some stuff on like Marketplace that are just old school parts, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that box, you know, we install that thing and it fired this thing right up. It's either gonna run or it's not. You know what I mean? There's not really a whole lot of symptoms with that. It just, they either run or they don't. They either work or they don't. Let's go get it put in. No, it's not really all that hard. You got a heavy red, heavy black, that's positive, negative. And then you got coil, and all this stuff's color coded, so it shouldn't take but a few minutes. Again, all I'm doing is wiring it up real quick to make sure that it fires and works in the car. So we got a lot of mess to clean up underneath of this. We got quite a few things that we want to do to clean up the engine bay and get the gauges off the pod, but we just got to make a plan and write it down, and that's going to be a project in itself. So we made a couple spade connector ends, positive, negative. And we're going to plug this into the actual coil, and then we're going to plug this into the old school ignition, and just with those 6 wires we'll be able to see if this thing. So the purpose of the MSD ignition is to put more spark into the cylinder, more spark energy, as you would say. And it's really good to use. This is old school 1990s stuff that, you know, kind of help the ignition. Some people don't like, you know, MSD. You know, most go to like what we're going to be doing with our cars, eventually going to coil on plug, where it kind of eliminates the TFI and the need for this sort of you know, CD box or whatever you want to call this thing. But back in the 90s, this is what we had to rely on to get more spark into the cylinders, so we didn't blow the spark out on the turbos or the superchargers or, you know, nitrous, etc. You know, when we go to do a final install, there's a coil box from NPD that I like to use, and I like to just replace the factory plug with it. That way it's easy peasy. Okay, now it's time to find out if this old 1990s box actually works. We went ahead and just connected the positive and the negative, put our wires into the old connector. So how this is gonna work, factory signal will come in and get amplified from the MSD ignition box and go into the coil and put more spark into our cylinder. So let's see if this old thing fires up. Hell yeah. Hey, I didn't have to go spend a bunch of money on some ignition parts. Pulled it out. Dude, this came out of the bottom of a box from a swap meet like 10 years ago. I can't believe that still works. That's awesome. Those things are die-hard, man. They're not built like they are today. They're built to last. So where do we go from here? We'll get this mounted and wired exactly the way we need it, and then we're gonna head back over to Craig & Automotive, the dyno shop, and we're gonna make some pulls and see. But like I said, I'm happy that I didn't have to go spend a bunch of money on a new MSD box, because I knew it probably was the ignition not being able to keep up. We got the dad's car off the jack stands. Just got to clean a couple things up. I know it's not a fancy video, but you guys inspire me to do work on the channel and get some work done in my garage so I can bring some content to you every week. I appreciate everybody for watching. Hit me up in the comments below. Let me know if you got swap meet parts that you found that got it for cheap and they actually worked really good in your car. Check out that join button. Become a member of the channel today. Appreciate all my members. Neomustangs.com. We got some merch, hats, shirts. Appreciate everybody who's been part of the channel all these years. And I just appreciate you here watching me on the video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. We'll see you in the next one.